In Iran this morning, a funeral procession is being held for the president, Ebrahim Raisi. He was killed in a helicopter crash on Sunday in mountains near the Azerbaijan border. This was the scene at the funeral procession this morning in Tabriz in northwestern Iran. The coffins of Raisi and other victims being taken through the city. Iran is currently marking 5 official days of mourning for Raisi. He was known as a hardliner, tapped as a potential successor to the supreme leader Ali Khamenei. The crash killed 7 others, including Iran's foreign minister. Rebecca Collard has been following the story since it broke, and she is continuing to watch it as well. Just that scene, incredible crowds in the streets, the mourning for Mr. Raisi. What has been happening today as you have seen it, Rebecca?
Yeah, as you say, Heather, these scenes from Tabriz today, you can see thousands of people crammed into the streets as these coffins move through the city. And you can see some of the mourners are actually trying to reach out just to try to touch the coffin of Ebrahim Raisi, of the country's foreign minister, and of these other officials that died in this helicopter crash on Sunday. So we have seen just really incredible scenes of mourning. You can see people visibly moved, Heather, in the streets, men crying in the streets. I will say, Ebrahim Raisi was not loved by all Iranians. He was sometimes called the butcher of Tehran or the hangman of Tehran for his role in sentencing dissidents to death in the 1980s. And he had played a very key role in the heavy-handed crackdown on the last year and a half or so of anti-government protests inside Iran. And when we see these scenes inside Iran, we've seen very different scenes, for example, here in Berlin, also in London, outside embassies where people gathered yesterday, Iranians gathered to essentially celebrate the death of Ebrahim Raisi, holding his photo with X's on it, and essentially sending the message that they were in fact happy that this man had died in this crash, Heather.
So it's very interesting, the mixed response to the death of Ebrahim Raisi. And I'm just wondering, in terms of international response, what is of note to you, Rebecca, and also the questions that those in the global community are raising now about the future, about succession, about what happens now in Iran. What are the things that you're watching most closely about the future?
Yeah, I'd say, first of all, Heather, also the international reaction has been mixed to the death of Ebrahim Raisi. Of course, we saw condolences and praise for Raisi from not just the states that Iran is allied with, but also the many militant groups across the region that form this so-called axis of resistance. So, Shia militant groups in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, the Houthi rebels, and of course also from Hamas in Gaza, singing this man's praises alongside the states that are allied with Iran. Now, I will just say one of the interesting things I think about Raisi is the fact that he, one of the things that he did was not just try to build relationships with Iran's allies, with Iran's neighbors, but also with like-minded states. And when I say like-minded states, Heather, I mean other states like Russia, like China, who have animosity towards the current global world order that they see as having U.S. hegemony. So he's been trying to build relationships with Iran and those states to try to kind of have cooperation among states that don't like the way the world is organized right now. And then, of course, we had statements from the U.S., which were much more toned down. The U.S. State Department spokesperson saying that official condolences had been offered, but also pointing to Ebrahim Raisi's track record of cracking down on dissent inside the country, Heather.
Some of the worst human rights abuses occurred during his tenure as president, especially the human rights abuses against the women and girls of Iran. That said, we regret any loss of life. We don't want to see anyone die in a helicopter crash. But that doesn't change the reality of his record, both as a judge and as the president of Iran, the fact that he has blood on his hands.
And there, Matthew Miller is talking about the crackdown led by Raisi inside the country, but of course also, Heather, the U.S. and Iran have very different objectives globally as well.
Rebecca, thank you very much. Rebecca, covering the story so closely for us out of Berlin for us today.